as I'm looking at the stars that are closest to me, I sort of feel like they're looking back at me. And I was like, what? These stars are conscious. And then I realized, oh wait, these aren't stars. These are souls. I was so astonished by what I was seeing that I felt like I was gonna die from how beautiful it was. I literally could not handle how beautiful it was. I could feel God kind of chuckle and laughing, like it's all good, relax, there's nothing to fear. I'm putting on a show for you. You just kick back, relax, and enjoy it without resistance.
So, if you wouldn't mind, I guess we can just start with your near-death experience and any relevant information leading up to that.
Yeah, so I grew up in a very difficult family, a lot of violence and, a very unstable mother and very violent father. And, it was really tough growing up. I grew up with pretty bad PTSD symptoms. And as I got older, I started to fall into addiction and severe depression and things like that. So, I'll come in and out of those things. I was always working on my mental health and my spiritual health. And, I was fighting it, but, a lot of the time I was losing that fight, to be honest. And things got really bad during the lockdowns in Melbourne here. So Melbourne, Australia, pretty much had the worst lockdowns in the world outside of China during the COVID stuff. And yeah, it hit me pretty bad. I started getting into harder drugs at that time. So in late 2021, I passed out from taking too much of the stuff I was taking. And yeah, and when I passed out, I found myself in a void. And everything was just that peaceful, neutral sort of black, where there's nothing in this place. And I don't know, I found it kind of nice, to be honest. I don't know why people get scared of that. I liked it. I thought it was nice and peaceful there. And when I was there, I started to feel this energy starting to enter this place with me. And this energy it was like the perfect energy. It was just absolutely beautiful. It was so warm and so loving, but it was extremely powerful as well. And I had this feeling when I was with this energy, like I've never experienced a love so powerful before, because here on earth, like the love, when we say love here on earth, it feels kind of like, like romantic love, or it's like something soft, but this wasn't that kind of love. This love, I'm tempted to use the word nuclear. Like this love could have completely evaporated me. Like, it was that strong, it was intimidating. But the power of the love was perfectly balanced with how good the love felt itself. Like, it was just this perfect balance. And to be honest, when I felt it, I was just like, oh, this is what I've been looking for. Like, all my life, all the things I was chasing in my life, I was looking to get this feeling, but I didn't know it. And I was just I was just sitting with it. And as I was sitting with this energy, I realized that this energy felt very familiar. And but I was like, how can this energy be familiar? Like, it's the first time I've felt this energy, but I know I felt it before. And I was like, okay, well, I got to look through my life, find this energy. And I scanned through my whole life in about a second, and I couldn't find it. And I kept scanning, and I was able to scan back before my life. And when I scanned back before my life, that's when I found it. And I realized that I'd been spending time with this energy before I was born, and that this energy was God's energy. And well, it was mind blowing, I was like, wow, okay, so I'm here with God right now. And this energy was like holding me and embracing me. I was completely enveloped in it. And it was just like the perfect place to be. And it was just very healing, And I realized that I kind of had this choice to make, because the love was so, and the power was so intimidating, that I could have chosen to be scared of it as well. Just because there was this, like, put it this way, if you feel that kind of power and that kind of love while you're in the body, your body will definitely disintegrate. Like no question about it. It's too powerful. And I didn't know whether I was in the body or not. I didn't know what was going on. I was just there, you know. And I was just like, oh, well, it feels good. I'm still here. I'll just go with the love. And I fell into it, and then I was taken out of that void, and I was in this other dimension. And this other dimension, it looked a lot like space. Um, there was so many stars everywhere. Like I can't count how many. It was just innumerable the amount of stars that were everywhere, and they were so beautiful because they were kind of changing colors slightly. Like the colors was revolving around them, and I was seeing colors that I'd never seen before, and I was completely taken aback by it. And I'm looking at the ones closest to me, and as I'm looking at the stars that are closest to me, I sort of feel like they're looking back at me. And I was like, what, these stars are conscious? And then I realized, oh wait, these aren't stars, these are souls. And oh, I'm trying to piece it all together, what's going on right now. And I'm just looking at it all and taking it all in, and then God is just like this invisible, like it's invisible, but he may as well have been visible because I clearly knew where God was at all times. God didn't have like a gender. It wasn't a he or a she or anything like that. I say he because I grew up religious. We always referred to God as he. So it's just what I naturally say. But it was an energy, and I felt this energy starting to gather all the souls up together, and it was creating this beautiful like mandalas, almost like a lot like what Buddhist mandalas look like. And the, I mean, the mandalas were like dynamic, all the colors within it were changing and they were revolving, and they were like they had depth to it, because here we sort of would see it in like 2D, but over there it was like extreme depth to it. I was seeing in multiple dimensions at once, and all the colors that I hadn't seen, and my mind was going to explode. Like I was so astonished by what I was seeing that I felt like I was going to die from how beautiful it was. I literally could not handle how beautiful it was. And, I was just like trying to keep it together, like, oh my God, what am I seeing right now? This is incredible. And I could feel God kind of chuckle and laughing, like, it's all good, relax, there's nothing to fear, and he's like, I'm putting on a show for you. You just kick back, relax, and enjoy it without resistance, And I was like, how? It's so intense right now. It's so beautiful. I can't believe how beautiful it is. Like I'm gonna die from the astonishment of it all. And and then yeah, after this art show went on for a while, and then we started flying. He took me through, and we started flying together through this space area. And as we were flying, I could feel the inertia of the flight, but what I was flying through was love. Like love was in the atmosphere over there. And it was the perfect kind of love. It's the love that, I think we're all searching for, really. And the love that we fail to find in partners and things like this, I think here on Earth, we're always disappointed by the love we can't find, until we find it within. And this is the love I was experiencing over there. It was perfect. It's the only way I can describe it. It's perfect. And as I'm flying through this love, and I'm experiencing the inertia of it, and I'm seeing all the beauty of all the souls that I'm flying past, I started to feel destabilized, like I was taking on too much. It felt a lot like turbulence on a plane. You're on the plane and everything starts shaking, like that, but an extreme version of that. I think it's a bit like if anyone has ever done astral travel, and there's like vibrations before your soul leaves your body. It was a bit like that. But I didn't have the analysis going on to understand that. I just knew I was shaking, and I started to feel like I was going to die over there, even though looking back now, that was a silly thing to think. That's just how it felt to me at the time. So I'm flying and I'm experiencing all this love, all this beauty. I'm shaking. And I'm starting to get a little worried at how much I'm starting to shake because it's increasing. And then we come to a stop. We stop flying and we're in front of this tower. And this tower is like a giant skyscraper. And it's made out of light. And it's made out of the same kind of light as all the souls are made out of. And, the colors are dynamic on this tower and they're changing and it's just beautiful. Um, and I feel God sort of telling me like, all right, we're going to go to the top of this tower now. And I said, okay. And we start flying up this tower, but we're flying at a much faster speed than we were flying at before. And, as I'm flying up, the faster I'm going, the more love I'm absorbing. And again, I'm feeling that turbulence and everything is shaking within me. And it's shaking to the point where I was certain I was going to die. And I braced myself for it. And as I braced myself for that death, we finished flying and we got to the top of the tower. And I was like, oh, gosh, that was close. And, I took a breather and I looked around and, God and I, we walked to the edge of this tower. And as I looked out, I could see millions and billions, trillions. I don't know how many of these stars there were, but I could see it from like a bird's eye view, just looking out. And it's just one of the most beautiful. Well, it is the most beautiful thing I could ever see. Um, I just took it all in and I breathed and I felt God telling me, okay, now we're going to fly through all of that. And I was like, oh, come on, wait a minute. I nearly died coming up this tower, and now you want me to fly through all that? I'm gonna die for sure. There's no question about it. And God just said, yes. I was like, what? I wasn't expecting that answer. What do you mean, yes? So I thought God's gonna say, no, it's all right, you'll be fine. Like, no, he just said yes, and that's it. I was like, okay, I have to think about this for a moment. Um, I'm experiencing something amazing right now, and I'm with God, and God is so unbelievably loving and so powerful and so wise and so calm. And here I am thinking about like what's in front of me now, and God's not trying to influence my decision. God's completely patient, completely calm. If it took me 1,000 years to decide what I was going to do, God would have waited. That just without resistance, just yep, take your time, that kind of thing. And I know God doesn't want me to die. And I don't know, it's confusing, like it was confusing, but I just thought, you know what? I trust God. I trust God more than I trust myself. And if God says you're gonna die and he says it like there's nothing wrong with that, all right, let's do it. I'll go along with it. And so I said, okay, let's do it. And I said, all right. And then it was like I was like a paper plane that got thrown off this tower. It was just like this beautiful gliding down, and it was slow at the start, and it was easy, and I was like, oh, this is not so bad. It started gliding down, and then I started to fly through this basically like a sea of lights, and I was flying through it, and I'm having this brief vibrational interaction with each soul that I'm flying past, and I'm absorbing their love and their beauty and taking it all in. And the speed is increasing and increasing, and it's going faster and faster and faster. And then I'm starting to feel that turbulence again. And now I'm like, okay, like God says it's okay to get past this. Like, that's the whole point. I thought, all right, let's do it. It's been a good ride. Like, if I die, I die. That's no worries. And as the speed got faster and faster, I got past that breaking point. And when I got past that breaking point, I started to feel the layers coming off my body. So like first my skin started to peel off, and then my muscles and my bones and all these layers of human identification that had remained with me in this place, they were all getting peeled off one by one. And there was no pain associated with it. It felt really good. It felt like taking off a tight shoe. And each layer that came off felt like another tight shoe. And I was just like, able to breathe, like, oh, I'm so glad to get that layer off. Like, all right, cool, let's keep taking these layers off, that's so good. And, I'm flying like so fast and I'm just without resistance. I'm just like, yeah, like, let's do it. This is cool. And each layer is coming off until I get down to my final layer. And I don't know how I knew. I just knew that it was my final layer. And I thought, all right, well, when this layer dies, like that's it, then I'm done. There's nothing left after this. Like, cool, thank you. And I'm flying up the speed of light. And when I was down to this final layer, there was no more inertia. There was no more feeling of how fast it was. Just there was nothing. It was just, I don't know, it's hard to describe it, but basically this layer was not affected whatsoever by the flight, and it was not dissolving and it was not coming off. And I thought, what is this layer that's still here, that it's still like it's completely unaffected by this flight? This is strange. Like, am I just being impatient, or like, so what's going on here, and got curious. And as soon as I started thinking like this, God stopped me from flying. And as he stopped me from flying, he picked me up and God showed me what he was looking at from his point of view. And I could see that God was looking at a little white light, and it was the light of my soul. And God just told me, he said, no matter what you've gone through and everything you will go through, everything you experience will fade away. This is all that remains. This is who you really are. This is eternal. Remember this. And then he rolled me out of his hand like a little marble, and I just joined in with the other sea of lights, and I became one with this sea of lights. It was like a drop of water joining the ocean. And it's hard for me to talk about this because it felt like this is where my soul originated from. It was yeah, my soul had a longing for God, don't get me wrong, but this was God. Like, this was where my soul originated from. Like, I was an aspect of God, and I had unified and joined in with all the other aspects of God, and it was just a sea of light. And I was one with them. And when I became one with them, I became one with God. We were all one being. As much as your finger is a part of your body, I became a part of God. And I was just like, yes, that's it, And I experienced, I guess, what it was like to be God in terms of all the power of it and all the love of it, and the perfect, I guess you could say, the ultimate relaxation, because there was no desire for anything anymore. There was no, I don't know, it goes beyond words. It's so hard to describe it, but it was the ultimate of the ultimates, put it that way. I don't think there's any experience that any soul can have that can beat that, is joining back home to the source, to where we came from originally. That's what I experienced. And then I was there for however long I was there for, and then God picked me up, and he picked me back up out of that sea of lights. And then there was this image materialized next to me, and it was an image of this human body that I'm in now. And it was there, and I remembered it. I was like, oh, like Earth and humans, and I completely forgot about that when I was there. And I was like, oh yeah, yeah, I remember that guy. I used to think I was that guy. Like, oh, now you're gonna send me back to that, aren't you? And he's like, yeah. I go, oh, okay, wait. And I started to I started to remember what it was like to be a human. And I knew that if I had just gone back there, the human would be upset because the human's got questions about this experience, you know? And I had to think, I sort of became the human so I could ask questions for the human. And I said, okay, how am I supposed to go from this experience and then go back to being on Earth and living like a human and doing all that? Like, there's so much of a contrast. I don't see how I can possibly do it. How can I handle that? It's too much. And God just said, it's okay. And when God said it's okay, embedded within the vibration of that, God was saying, I don't judge you for what happened to you before you were here, when you were on earth, what you turned into, all of that I understand. And how you handle things when you get back, and trying to integrate this experience, all of it I accept. I get you, I understand. It's okay. And I said, all right, but when I go back, I'm not going to be able to keep this to myself. Like, I have to tell everyone about this experience, but no one's going to believe me. They're all going to think I'm insane. Like, I remember what it was like on Earth. No one's going to believe me. And then I remembered the people who I loved the most on Earth, and I said their names to God, and I said, can you give those people some of this love? Like, if you give them this love I'm experiencing right now, then when I tell them about it, they're going to believe me. So can you give them this love? And then God said, well, that's what you're there for. I said, me? What? How am I supposed to give them all this love? This love is too much. I couldn't possibly give them all this love. And then he said, well, you can ask me for help. You can ask for help to be an outlet for this love. And I thought, oh, that's an interesting concept. It's very different to how I was living life on Earth, where I was trying to produce that goodness and that love for myself and for others. And I was trying to do everything with my ego. And then so if I just be an outlet and let this love flow through me from you to them, like, oh, that is so much easier. Like, okay, yeah, I'll definitely do that. And I thought about it, and I thought, well, God, it's so easy to say this from up here, but when we go down to earth, it's so much more confusing. The vibration is so dense, everything is so slow, and it's confusion, and the mind chatter and all that stuff that we deal with down there, like, and the habits, like, oh, bad habits. I feel like I'm just going to go back to those bad habits again, and I can't have this experience. And then, like, what? And then I'm just going to lose touch with you again. I can't lose touch with you again. And then God said, I am you. And then I was like, what? Like, how can you say you are me? Like, you're too powerful to be me. You couldn't possibly be me. How can you even say that? And then out of the center of my forehead, this giant golden eye shot out, and this giant golden eye is looking back at me. And I'm like, okay, well, what is this? It's a giant golden eye. It's coming out of my forehead. It's looking at me. Is this my eye looking at me, or is this God's eye is looking at me through me? And I'm trying to figure it out. And then God said, I am viewing your life through you as you. You and I are one. And then he sent me back.
Jacob, thank you so much for sharing your amazing experience with us. Do you mind if I ask you a few questions?
I'll go for it.
The first thing I want to say is that there's a couple elements of your experience that remind me so much of my own. And the one I've never heard anybody mention before, and that's when you saw the Mandelas. I also saw that, and they were also multi-dimensional and moving and shifting within themselves and completely impossible to describe. And when I saw that, it wasn't just like a pattern. It was like it was all information, and it was like the giant plan of how everything was working together, and just like dimensions beyond what we can understand here. But I was just curious if that's what it was like for you also.
Yeah, yeah. I'm so glad you said that. It's because it is so hard to describe. Like my mind can't even really reconstruct it exactly. Like it's just
Mm-hmm.
vague little parts of it
Yes.
because my brain can only work in three dimensions. And this was like multi-dimensional mandalas. But the interesting thing was that the mandalas were constructed out of the souls itself. So, and
Wow.
yeah, I don't know. I wish I could remember it, but it'll probably break my brain.
The other thing you mentioned is that the power of the love and that the power was like nuclear power. And that's also what I experienced, especially from my pre-birth memory, that it was like this massive power that almost could make you afraid, but it was like something that was so too almost too good to be true. Like it was so powerful, but there's this secret about the power that we forget in this life. And in religion, we translate it into fear. God's going to throw you into hell. But in reality, it's love. Like all of that power is this giant consuming love. And I haven't heard a lot of people talk about the power. I do remember Kimberly Clark Sharp mentioning that the closest experience in this world she could get to that kind of power was standing behind the Niagara Falls.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm not surprised, and I'm sure that she would agree that standing behind Niagara Falls wouldn't even be 1% of it.
Right,
It's
exactly.
I remember thinking at the time, well, realizing at the time that all of the universes were running on this power, like this love, this powerful love was the underlying element beyond behind the fabric of all existence, basically. Everything was running on this
Yeah.
power. So if you can imagine all the power that there is in all of the universes combined, this is the common element. At the same time, like it's so much power that it transcends anything you can possibly fear because
Mhm.
like I guess fear makes sense to be scared of something because it can be like an appropriate response in some situations, right? Like if
Mhm.
a guy holds a knife up to me, I can be scared of it because then that fear can allow me to run or to fight him. But when there's something that is just that great, that powerful, what's the fear going to do for you? The fear's gonna it can't serve you in any way. You might as well just appreciate it.
Right.
It transcends the limitations. But on the flip side, the love is so great that you start to fear it as well. So it's kind of it's there's this thing. It's like a very yin yang thing about it all.
So you said that you remembered the love from before you were born, like you scanned back through your life and remembered it from before you came to your life on Earth. Do you have any specific memories of that, or you just recognized it from back then?
I don't have any specific memories. It was just like an instant recognition. Um, I don't remember like if at the time a specific memory came up, but the way I remember it was just scanning back before my life and just an instant knowing like yeah that's where it was. It's like we have faculties of the mind over there that we don't carry with us here, which is what allows us to experience things at the speed of light and get answers to things just by thinking about them and stuff like
Right.
that. That was what was active over there, which was not active with me here when I remembered the experience.
Mhm.
But yeah, it was just an instant knowing.
So you talked about how you absorbed so much, I think you said so much love or so much of this experience that you felt like it was too much and you started to like feel overwhelmed or off balance because of it. Why? And I hear that a lot. Not even just from near death experience accounts, but even here in this life, if you talk about things like a Kundalini awakening, they will say that that can be really dangerous because if you're not prepared for it and it happens to you, it could blow your nervous system out and you could have develop some psychosis. So I'm just curious, why do you think that is? Why is there like a certain level that we can handle of this love when it's actually such a good thing?
Well, I think it destabilizes the ego, and the ego is sort of like you could one of the ways you could define the ego is like circular thinking patterns, where you're running around thinking in the same way about the same things all the time. And when you blow that out, well, where do you go? Things are unlimited after that. And running into psychosis is one of the many possibilities. And I think that's one of the things that we're kind of lacking in Western society, like trained people, like gurus of some sort that can help guide you through this sort of thing. We're doing it all by ourselves. So while there is some danger, I think a lot of people do go through it here in the West and they come out of it successfully. But yeah, I think that's one of the things that is sorely lacking in our society is trained people to help us to help guide us through this safely.
Yeah, I agree so much. And I think that's because in Western society, religion has been more of like a mental understanding, like believe the correct things and you'll go to heaven rather than actual spiritual awakening. And so there's not a lot in the West, not a lot of teachers that actually understand that. Like, what is this process of spiritual awakening? What's happening in the body and in the nervous system? And I wasn't aware of it until very recently. There is a teacher online that I follow called his name is Aaron Abke, and he does talk about this and help people guide people through that process. And I just thought that was so fascinating when I learned about that. Like there's an actual awakening process, like upgrade that happens in your nervous system. So where you can
Mm.
handle more light, basically, like more I don't know the proper word, but higher density of light or information.
Like these weird things that happen, with your body and your face, these like kind of they almost look like ticks in the nervous system,
Yeah. Hmm.
and spasms, like random spasms here. Um, and then yeah, you get an increase in psychic abilities and all this sort of stuff. And it's very, I think one of the most dangerous things about it is the interpretation of the ego going, oh, look at me, I'm so spiritual now, oh, look what I'm doing, that kind of thing. That I think that's a recipe for disaster when you start having pride
Mm.
go along with it. And that's one of the things that you kind of need somebody from a third person perspective to look at you and go like, hey, watch out what you're doing there, like, you know um stay humble, that sort of stuff. So yeah, but I think Jesus spoke about this sort of thing a lot, but it was all very coded information in the Bible. Like
Yeah.
you kind of have to be able to read between the lines of what he was saying, and then you can figure it out.
Mm.
But you can't figure it out unless you're actually going through it. Like, kind of have to raise your consciousness a little bit to be able to understand the things that he was speaking about. And Jesus said the same thing. He was saying like, these people hear my words, but they don't understand them. You know.
Yes.
So like when I got back, because I was raised Christian, but I left Christianity in my early 20s and I started exploring different religions and that. And when I got back from my NDE, I started to get these downloads coming to me, and different Bible stories and things that Jesus taught. They were coming up in my mind, and I started to understand them from a different point of view, from a deeper layer. And I was like, oh, wow, these are actually really powerful teachings, like really amazing. And I realized like basically there is only one religion, but it's like it's coded in all the religions. It's not a religion by name. It's not, oh, it's a Christian or a Hindu or a Muslim thing. No, no, no. When you get it, you get it. And I think the mystics all around the world in different religions, they all got it. So all the mystics would agree. About the
Mm.
nature of reality and stuff like that. And when people have got it because there's a certain love that flows through them. And it's a very calm love, and it's not dependent on outside circumstances and who they're dealing with. It's just this love that is there because they're in tune with that level of reality, which is the base level of reality. And you know it. And I've encountered this with people. So when I got back from my NDE, there were certain channels and podcasts on YouTube, and yours was one of them, where I would hear people speak and I'll be like, oh, like that reminds me of home. That reminds me of that's comforting to my soul.
Mm.
And even to this day, like I meet people who are Hindu or Muslim or whatever, and certain people have got it, and we recognize each other straight away. We know when we look at each
Mm.
other. And so that's interesting. And that's just the thing I want to share with people the most, because there are so many troubled souls out there. I was one of them. And we don't know what we're looking for. We don't know what's going to actually heal us. We're looking
Mm.
for it in a drug, or we're looking for it in a partner, or an activity, or an accomplishment, or all these external things, or sense gratification. But that question was solved for me during my NDE when I encountered God and God's love. And I was like, this is it. This is what I was looking for. And I had to learn when I got back how to feel that and how to sense that within myself and within the wider world, because it is everywhere. It truly is everywhere. But our egos filter it out. And I think this is the most magical part of freeing up the divine essence within us to be able to experience God's love, which is within and without. It's in me, and it's in you, and it's in everybody. And that's all that really matters, in my opinion.
Mm. Thank you so much for sharing a little bit of your journey after the near death experience. And not to put you on the spot, because I don't know how long ago this happened, but you mentioned that you rethought some of the teachings of Jesus and realized how profound they were. Do you remember what any of those were and the truth that you saw in them after your near death experience?
Yeah, the prodigal son. The story of the prodigal son was, I could not stop thinking about that for 2 or 3 days after the experience. The prodigal son is, like, he goes out, he leaves his father. His father is, he's got, it sounds like a rich, mansion, servants, all this sort of stuff. And he leaves and he says, I want to spend my inheritance out in the world. I want to go and have fun, basically. I want to go out and play. And and he's like, and God says, that's all good. Like, I'm not judging you. Like, go enjoy yourself. Like, and that reminded me of when God told me, said, it's okay. It was that same thing, you know? And he goes out, and the boy goes out, and he basically spends all his money, and he loses everything until he's in a state of despair. Basically, he's ruined, and he's like, he's eating with pigs, and he's eating the food of the pigs while he's working on a pig's farm, and then he's going, what am I doing here? Like, I might as well just go back home to my dad. And when he goes back home to his dad, like, he's saying, like, he's putting his head down, like, oh, I'll be a servant for my dad. I'll do whatever dad asks me. Hopefully dad accepts me back. And dad's like, nah, you come here, we're having a party. We're gonna have a good time. I'm so glad you're back. And he meets him halfway. And this is what I had experienced, like before my NDE, actually in the few days before it, I remember getting to this place within myself where I started to see just how ruined I was as a human being. That, okay, I'd been dealing with addiction problems for, around 13 years. And I didn't think I'd be able to get out of them anymore. I thought, I tried so much, and I failed and I failed and I really tried my best. I really did try my best. I'm just a ruined human being. My life is a sad story. That's what I believed. And I thought, yeah, really, really dark stuff. But I was no longer kidding myself. I was no longer lying to myself. And then I had the NDE within a few days of that. And I think this was like an ego death that I was experiencing just beforehand, where I was like, okay, this is the nature of my reality. I should stop trying to pretend I'm something other than what I am. And then God was like, good, that's where you need to be. Now let me show you who you really are. Um, and and God, yeah, like God, just like in the story of the prodigal son, the father did not judge the son. The father was overjoyed for the son to be finished with the world. That's where I was at. I was done. I was like, I was using all these drugs and women and this and all the pleasures of the world, all the sense gratification, which was not scratching the itch in my soul. you know but the only difference with that story is that we're not aware that we left the father. We've completely forgotten about that. We made the decision to come here and experience what we experience, and we do it for however long we do it. And a lot of people don't realize that there is a better option, that we can return back home. But you only get to that point when you're genuinely sick of the world and you realize there is nothing here that I can experience that is truly satisfying. And then that's when you're ready for the spiritual awakening.
Wow, that is so true. That I've noticed that so much in my own life that I feel like everything in my life is designed to push me into a place where I have to like drive me to seek the end of my own suffering, right? And realize that anything else that I'm attaching to or looking to for satisfaction will ultimately cause suffering. So it forces me into a position where I just have to completely surrender it all and just look to the one thing that is the only thing that can satisfy, which is basically finding that love within yourself. Like you alluded to, I was going to ask you about this. You said when you came back you had to learn to find that within yourself, and what did that process look like for you?
It was very messy. It was very messy.
Same here.
Yeah. I to be honest, I wasn't expecting it because when it took me a few days to really accept the fact that I had an NDE, I was trying to convince myself that I had a drug hallucination, but I've had plenty of those, and I knew this wasn't a drug hallucination. And um, I, I knew how much it changed me. And first, I started seeing this girl. This girl was like, a quote unquote spiritual girl, but like spiritual in the worldly terms, like I guess you could say like new agey kind of spiritual. Um, and I realized just how messy human love is, because human love was like she was really trying to sort of extract love out of me, like squeezing a sponge to get the love out. And it was like I realized that's not true love. That's not what love really is. Um, and I couldn't do that anymore. I was just like, okay, that's not going to work. And I eventually went back to the drugs again, and I was using more drugs than ever, and it was like completely not scratching the itch at all. And I kept trying all these different things, going back to the world, but it was abundantly clear to me that this wasn't even going to give me the illusion of satisfaction anymore. But I didn't know how to experience God's love yet, like really just to be in it. I didn't know how, and I was really in a state of despair, truly in a state of despair, which is kind of a good thing because this is when you're really willing to do anything to get there. This is where I started to get to, and I said to God, I said, "Look, God, this life is unbearable without your love. Do with me what you will, but I need to find your love again. I need to feel it. Do whatever you want with me. I don't care, you know." And when I started to get there, things started to unravel in my life. People started to come into my life to help dissolve certain egos and any obstacles that I had between God and I, and to experience that love. Those obstacles were being dissolved bit by bit eventually. And yeah, I was just when I got to that point where I was truly willing to lose my life, my earthly life, that's when I started to get there. Um, and it starts off very like you don't even realize it while it's happening. I'd say that it's not like you have this grand awakening and there's angels singing next to you and stuff like that. Like no, it was very, very much like what I noticed was just a very easy kind of dropping away of everything. So first, I stopped drinking, and then I stopped smoking, and then I stopped this drug and that drug, and stopped playing video games. And then I noticed that I wasn't dealing with lust for women anymore. I wasn't constantly chasing sense gratification. And I didn't even realize it when it was happening until I'd compare myself with other guys. My mates and stuff would be hanging out, and they're doing all that stuff again, and they're really chasing it, trying to scratch an itch. And I realized I wasn't doing that anymore. And I was like, okay, something's definitely changing in me. I didn't even realize it was happening. And, and just being able to feel God's love everywhere, like being willing to go along with that process and dissolving those layers and being able to feel more and more of God's love. And then just having a desire to, instead of say sitting at home and watching Netflix, like to put on some spiritual music or to just have some quiet meditation and to just be in that vibration of God's love. And that's that's all I need. That's all I want. That's what truly satisfies me now. And the more I do that, the more that vibe is just going with me wherever I go. So I work in a factory right now. And when I'm at work, a lot of guys, they're either very repelled by that energy or they're very attracted to that energy. And they come, they talk to me. And some guys, some people I never even, like, they don't have to say hi to me. They're saying, "Hey man, how you going?" And sometimes I'm in the supermarket and kids are waving at me and stuff. And I'm like, all right, something's definitely happening, like where there's a there's some sort of resonance that's happening with other people, and it's beautiful. You start like experiencing miracles and amazing synchronicities. And I just started to notice that I really feel like a part of God now. Like God is using me to move other people and to help other people. But it's not something I'm doing with my ego. It's not like I'm going every day, all right, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that so that people join my religion. And it's none of that. I'm not thinking about anything. I'm just going with the flow. There's this flow, or I should say, the flow is going with me. There's a divine flow that is going through me and is just making things happen through me. And it's a beautiful place to be because I can just watch it all unfold, and I'm just part of the story now. It's cool.
Oh, wow. I love hearing you describe that. I believe that state of consciousness is what, I don't know. I don't have all my facts here, but I know in the Eastern religions, one of the Eastern religions, they call it non-doership, where you completely lose that sense of I am causing an action, I'm doing this, I'm acting on the world, controlling this situation, and you just become one with the divine flow of life that's acting through you and as you. And I just think that's so beautiful. So thank you for describing that for us. I just have one more question for you here. When you said God rolled you out of his hand like a marble and you became one with all the other lights. You described it in another interview as merging with the infinite. And I recently interviewed Jonathan Van Valen, who had a near-death experience and used that exact same description, that he merged with the infinite. And he described it as losing his sense of self dissolving, and obviously beyond our ability to describe. But I'm just curious if you had that same experience of losing your sense of self or if yours was different.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, those are the words. That's why I forgot about Earth and I forgot about Jacob, and I saw Jacob as a separate entity. It's that bit still gets me choked up. Um, it was such a like no words. That's the part of the experience that's the hardest to describe. Like how do you describe losing sense of self when all the words in our language are describing being in the self and being within
Yeah.
time and being on earth. Like everything I experienced in that moment was, well, and the whole experience was beyond, but most of the experience I can still translate into words to make it something that people can understand. But that part, becoming one with the sea of lights, like I remember the sheer power, because the power of God's love, which I said was the underlying fabric within all of existence, um I became part of that. But the truth is, we are already part of that. But I was part of that without any illusion of being not a part of that. So it was like a drop of water in the ocean, and when there's, say, a giant tidal wave, the ocean feels the power of the tidal wave. And I was a drop of water in the ocean, feeling the power of all the different tidal waves throughout all of existence. If God moved his arm, I felt it. I knew it, and there was so much power in that wish. But the power, like as I said before, the power was perfectly balanced with the love. And you can't experience something like that without losing your sense of self. The self cannot possibly tolerate even a small percentage of that. But there's also this piece about it. Like imagine that you went out, I don't know, imagine somebody who goes to prison for like 50 years and then comes back home to his home and goes back to his bed and sleeps on his bed and feels his pillow and snuggles up and is like, like I'm back home. You know, it was, I guess you could say there's an element of that in it as well, where it was like something I'd forgotten about. Then I forgot how much I missed it, but this is where I originally came from, and I'm glad to be back here again.
Mm.
And yeah, I wish I could describe it, but I can experience small bits of it just by, being in the divine essence that is within me, which is within everyone. Being one with that, it satisfies me and it cures the cravings of the soul. I think this is what all our souls are really craving deep down, but not everyone's aware of it. A lot of people, and I don't judge them, a lot of people now, I understand that they're not walking the spiritual path because they're still playing. Like they're like kids who saying, "Mom, I'm going out to play. I'll see you later." Like, and they're going out to play. They're doing their thing. They're gonna fall down. They're gonna scrape their knee. They're gonna get into fights. They're gonna, no worries. You go do your thing. When you get sick of playing, I know you'll come back home. All right. I'm coming back home. I'm sick of playing. So yeah.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much, Jacob. And I'd like to give you a chance to share with the viewers where they can find you. You have a YouTube channel, correct?
Yeah, I've got a YouTube channel. If you just type in Jacob King on YouTube and you'll find my channel. If it doesn't come up, type in Jacob King 369. That should come up. And yeah, talk, leave comments, whatever. I really want to help people who are sick of playing and want to return home. I want to help them on their journey back home, to find God within themselves, because that's a beautiful place to be. And I think humanity as a whole is starting to go through quite an awakening at the moment.
Yeah.
Where on one hand you're having more recklessness, lawlessness, and debauchery than ever, but on the other hand, it's perfectly balanced with the amount of people who are starting to awaken and breaking out of these shackles. And I've experienced it, and I know you've experienced it, Melissa, and I think there are a lot of other people who are looking to experience that. And yeah, I'd like to be part of the journey for you guys to help on your awakening. So if you enjoyed this this podcast and you resonate with things I'm saying, maybe you can come join me on the YouTube channel, and hopefully I can continue helping you.
Absolutely, and I will have that link in the description. So thank you so much. I've really enjoyed talking to you, Jacob.
Thank you, Melissa. I appreciate you.
Thank you for watching the Love Covered Life podcast. Don't forget to subscribe, share this video with your friends, and comment with your thoughts and opinions. And check the description box for the links to my TikTok and Instagram, where I share the more personal side of my life, my website, where I share my paintings and merch, and also the Be a Guest link for anybody who's interested in sharing their story. Be loved, be happy, be at peace, and thank you for watching.